and welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. We have a special guest host this week, a new guest host to the show, Lea Sheldone. Welcome to the show, Lea.
Hi, thank you, Angela. I'm very excited to be here. I love talking about movies, so this is gonna be fun.
I'm excited to have you as well. Lea and I met through Salem Cinema, actually, our local art house theater here in Salem, Oregon, where Lea worked for a couple of years, I think, right?
About a year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay. Yeah. So sort of met during the pandemic at the theater and discovered mutual love of movies. Lea talk about movies all day long, just about like me. So Lea, I'm curious if you could tell the audience a little bit about like how you got into movies. I know you were a theater person too.
Mhm.
Like, so what kind of started your love of film?
I have always really loved stories. Like I was a big reader when I was a kid, as well. I just I love going on the journey, with a story, and I think that cinema is such a wonderful storytelling medium. And yes, I did do theater growing up, so like acting was also a thing that I really loved and was interested in. And so kind of like yeah, like looking at movies from a bunch of different perspectives of things that I enjoy because I'm also a photographer, so there's that cinematography aspect and like the acting and just generally liking being I don't know. Yeah, carried away by a story. Um, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't really necessarily have like a favorite kind of film. I pretty much like every genre. But yeah, I just enjoy it.
Well, I remember being impressed with you because, unlike some folks your age, you've seen a lot of older films, which is always impressive to me when people have seen like films that are older than they are, because a lot of people don't watch films that are older than they are. So we ended up talking about some older films, when I would run into you at the theater, and that was really exciting. But it's also really cool because you are an actress as well. Like you've been in quite a few stage productions, I know.
Mhm.
Have you been in any movies
Uh,
as an
so
actress or mainly theater?
I have done a couple movies. So I did some student films when I was in community college, and then I was in a horror movie that shot in Canyonville last around this time last year, called Cross Hollow. So that was my first like feature film that I was in, and then I actually was just wrapped another movie called Don't Want to Be the Final Girl, which is another horror movie that
Hmm.
we filmed a little earlier this year. And so yeah, I've been in a couple movies
Oh,
that
will the new
like
one get released anywhere locally that we can see it?
I think there will be a screening at some point, and then
Nice.
Cross Hollow is still in post production, so I'm not sure when that one will be happening. But yeah,
Fun. So, and I know we talked a little bit about some of your favorite movies of all time, one of which we're going to be reviewing on the show today. But do you want to you mentioned you liked all genres. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about some of your favorite films?
oh yeah, and that's why like when I say yeah, my favorite movies kind of like are spread across the board because I love Suspiria, which is one that we're going to talk about today. That is like it's a horror movie from the 70s, and it's just got amazing like gross practical effects and stuff with the gore. And then one of my other favorite movies of all time is Paddington 2.
Which is like the opposite of that. Yeah,
I
yeah.
know, right? Like I really, but it's like the different things that I take from these types of movies that just like I love. I also loved Moonlight, that came out a few years ago. Just incredible movie. So yeah, it's kind of like all over the place in terms of like
Yeah.
what I like, but I like them
Hey,
for different
Paddington
reasons.
2 is legit. Like David Ehrlich from IndieWire, he's like obsessed with that movie. Some critics
It's
just think it's
so
one of the
good.
greatest films of that decade. So I wasn't as into it as maybe a lot of other people, but it might be the rare sequel that's actually maybe better than the original. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I definitely think it's better than the original, and I like the original too. But it just has so much heart, and it's just fun. I love movies where I can tell the actors were just having a ball, like they were just
Hmm.
having a great time making the movie, and I think that Paddington 2 is definitely one of those films.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna review 4 movies today. It's a nice little hodgepodge of a couple newer films and then a couple of streaming options. So we'll kick it off with our first film for this episode, which is Emily the Criminal, starring one of my favorite actresses, Aubrey Plaza, in finally a lead role that she can sink her teeth into. She plays a character, Emily, who is saddled with debt, and she's a gig worker and is just not making it, just finding her hours reduced, having a hard time paying off all of her college debt. She's got more than $70,000 of debt that's just crippling her. And so she turns to a life of crime to try to pay off her debt, and things go really crazy. um, and there's the whole cast is really great, but what I love about this movie is that it's finally the Aubrey Plaza show. She's always such a great supporting role in a lot of movies. Even going back to her TV work with Parks and Recreation, where she wasn't the lead. But this is finally, she's finally in recent years with, I think, starting maybe with Ingrid Goes West and then Black Bear, getting some lead roles. But this one is really like the Aubrey Plaza show. So if you're an Aubrey Plaza fan like I am, I definitely recommend this one. It's also a nice little indie thriller. I actually, I didn't know everywhere where it was going, which I always appreciate. It's a first-time director, John Patton Ford, never first-time feature film, and so that's also pretty awesome that he got Aubrey Plaza to star in his feature film. And I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it, Leah.
Yeah, it was so unexpected because for me, when I think of Aubrey Plaza, I definitely think like way more comedy. Even the roles that she has been leads in prior, like in Ingrid Goes West, is more of a dark comedy. It's like it was very different, and I loved seeing this side of her acting range. And I would say that it might be one of the first times I've seen her play a character that is like this. It's less the quirky, awkward, silly kind of like deadpan humor
Deadpan
character.
humor, which is what she's known
Hmm.
for, yeah.
And she's amazing at that. I think that is very much something that aligns with her personality. So I was super impressed to see this side of her that is more like this leading actor in a thriller that is a much more grounded and real character, because lots of times she plays much sillier, bigger, like almost bordering that absurdist, unbelievable kind of feeling.
Right,
That, but
right.
this character was very grounded and human, even with like the wild like things that the character does. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is a I as an actor, I was like blown away personally. And I knew that like she was good. I've always liked Aubrey Plaza as well. I think she's a fantastic actor. But to see this side of her range was super impressive. Um
Yeah, she's not
I
funny at all in this, at least not
no,
intentionally. Yeah,
it's
although there's
not.
a scene where she gets to tell off Gina Gershon, another great, actress back in her day from the movie Bound, for people that remember Gina Gershon in the 90s, who hasn't been in as much stuff lately. She has a very small role for just a minute, but
Mhm.
it actually made me laugh a little bit because she basically, during a job interview, kind of tells the person interviewing her to go F off. And so it
No, it
was
was
just,
great. That line was so great. If you want to tell me what to do, put me on the F and payroll. I didn't know if I was
yeah,
allowed to curse because Aubrey Plaza definitely just says the F bomb. I don't know if I want to curse on this show, but yeah,
right, no, no.
honestly, as a millennial who has been broke for a long time and finally just got my first like job where I'm making enough money, the amount of like opportunities that come up that it's like, oh, I wish I could do that to like further my skills, but because it's
Hmm.
not paid, how am I supposed to, actually be able to do that? And I really related to that character. Um,
Yeah, I
and I
wondered
just,
about that,
yeah,
being closer in age to the character than I am, and then also just, knowing how many people your age or millennials, like you say, are just have this combination of like super high debt, amounts, or not having the opportunities that other generations had in terms of good
yeah.
paying jobs. And then, they get into this whole thing like the gig worker economy, where she has no
Mhm.
benefits. When her boss reduces her hours, he's like, "Oh, go talk to your union steward," sarcastically, because of course she has
Yeah.
none, right? And then there's the scene where and then the interview where they're like, "Oh yeah, you can come work at this prestigious firm, but you have to, intern." And she's like, "What is the internship pay?" "Oh no, you're going to work for free for 6 months, and then
And then
maybe
it
you'll get a
might,
job at
yeah.
the end."
The
It's not
thing where
even
it like
guaranteed.
might not lead to that is like, okay, well then I've wasted my time and I'm broke, and you know what I mean? Like you have to be able to balance life with the things you want to do. So there was a moment that like really stood out to me when there's a moment where she's speaking with the another character who is the mother of um one of the men in the criminal organization that she gets involved with, who she starts seeing, um, who, she asks what Emily does, and Emily's like, I'm still figuring that out. And she goes, well, you'll figure it out eventually. Either, you could be Emily the teacher, Emily the mother. And the fact that, the movie is titled Emily the Criminal, because the reason the mother brings that up is because it's like, you will find what you're good at eventually.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
sets up in the beginning that she is an artist, like that's what she wants to do. But then the fact that she does get involved in crime, and it was like she had no other choice, she got pushed into it.
Right.
I thought was very interesting. I
Well, and she
honestly,
actually finds she's good at it, right? So
I
she's, I
know.
mean, she's good at it. I mean, she's better at it really than her boyfriend in some way. We find she is tough as nails. There is a scene where she's holding a box cutter to a guy's throat, and I thought, oh, she might actually do it. Like she's not,
Yeah.
she's got something inside of her that allows her to be successful at this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the fact that we got to see, and I was wondering because it gets set up that she committed some type of like like assault, and like she committed battery, aggravated assault, when she was younger. And I was wondering where that was going to go, like what was going to be the reason, because it
Hmm.
sets up in the beginning and it's closer to the end when you find out what it was actually for. And it ends up that she was in a domestically like violent relationship with her ex, and the reason she got charged with that was because she had like essentially threatened him and attacked him. And she's like, my mistake was that I didn't do enough to actually scare him from like going to the police about it. And I thought that was wild, because the whole time I was thinking like, oh, maybe it was some type of like self-defense situation or this or that. And so I enjoyed watching a movie that had a lead character that didn't feel like it had to be like a perfect human being.
Oh no, yeah, she's definitely flawed.
Yeah, she's flawed, a flawed character, but then still being able to like relate to that character and understand what she goes through, even if you don't necessarily condone her actions. It's
Yeah,
like, I think was a really compelling character to watch on screen, especially when you
for
find out
sure.
that in her past, like it's not something that's the reason that she was charged with that was because of,
Yeah.
not because of like something that people would find more sympathetic. It's just like she's got issues.
Yeah. Well, I could recommend it. So I definitely recommend it. It was in theaters for a while. It showed at Sundance this last year and lots of film festivals, and now it's on streaming on Netflix. So are you able to? It sounds like you liked it, Leah. You're gonna be able to
Oh yeah,
recommend
I
it.
would definitely recommend it. I think it's really good, especially if you enjoy thriller as like a genre. I think you'll
Hmm.
you'll really like this one.
Okay. Well, we should move on to our next one.
Yes.
And that's yours.
Yes. The next movie we're going to talk about is Pinocchio, from 2022, this year, but the one directed by Guillermo del Toro. I know there's a Robert Zemeckis version that like came out this year as well. I was like, ooh, awkward. But this version of Pinocchio is, to with the research that I did on it, is much closer in like tone to the actual story from the 1800s, the actual book. Um, and it's set in a fascist Italian World War II backdrop. Um, and yeah, apparently this was like Guillermo del Toro's like baby. Like he worked on this project for a really long time, and it's all claymation, so it's just absolutely stunning and gorgeous animation. I was so impressed with this movie, because I didn't. I mean, I knew it's animated, and lots of times people think animation and they think, oh, for kids. But I still think kids can watch this. I just think maybe they might need some like parental guidance to like talk about some of the themes and things that happen in the movie.
Yeah.
But essentially, he is. It's the story of Pinocchio, but it's set, where Geppetto has a son named Carlo who, uh, dies tragically in, an accidental bomb going off that, kills his son, and he's very depressed for a long time. And then he, makes, eventually, like in his depression, he creates a wooden puppet to like be his son. And then instead of like the blue fairy, like the Disney version, you have the wood sprite who comes in and gives him life, brings him to life. But the implication is that she like uses Carlo's soul to like reinvigorate and bring this wooden boy to life. And then in this, the Cricket character is, instead of Jiminy Cricket, it's Sebastian J. Cricket, is like kind of becomes his conscience, or like his heart, because that's where he was living, because he was living inside the tree that Geppetto cut down. Um, and then it's about the journeys that this character goes on, but the backdrop of the World War II fascist Italy is integral to the story. So in
Hmm.
this version, Pinocchio is immortal. He dies a bunch of times, but he has
Hmm.
to wait in the afterlife for a while, or for like an hour. And each time he dies, he has to wait in the afterlife a little longer before he can go back. And I feel like personally, the fact that Guillermo del Toro made this movie and like it was his passion project and he's so anti-fascist, it's like incredible. He doesn't even have it as like a metaphor. Benito Mussolini is a character who
Right,
at one
exactly.
point is so offended by Pinocchio, he literally has him executed. And then you're shown the horrors of war through the eyes of an immortal wooden boy. Like I thought that that was just really interesting to see in a movie, in an claymation movie. I feel like I've never quite seen a movie like this before, but I'm not surprised. It's Guillermo del Toro. I think he's fantastic. I had some things that I didn't like love about the movie. I felt like tonally there was a bit of a fight between the fact that it was like also a musical and also like, yeah, I would definitely recommend this movie. I really liked it, but and there were like a lot of really good themes around like grief and loss, and yeah, personally I really enjoyed it. Angela, I would love to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah,
I
no, I agree with you. I think the tonal, I really did enjoy it, and I thought the animation was beautiful. And I actually enjoyed the music. I was a little surprised though when they first started breaking out into song because I actually did not know it was a musical
yeah,
going in, which was an odd melding between the very dark story and almost sort of the Disney aspect that we're familiar with Pinocchio, although different type of music, obviously altogether. Although the music is actually pretty decent. It's not
yeah,
bad. It was just a little bit
hmm,
like, oh, we're jumping into a song here. Now we're going back
yeah,
into Mussolini's fascist Italy. So it was like an interesting, as you mentioned, a juxtaposition for me.
yeah,
What made it a great movie is that I felt really felt transported. I mean, the scene with the whale, and which isn't really a whale, it's more like a sea monster the way it looks in this version. And I mean, all the times that he dies, it's actually there's a lot of heavy stuff in this movie. So I would definitely, as you said, I think, kids could watch it, but there would definitely be I don't think they would probably get a lot of what's going on, particularly all the, fascism and World War II references, but even some of the aspects where he keeps dying and then he's trying to understand why other people, don't come back to life and he's having a hard time understanding that could be pretty profound for children. So I think that it would be something parents would just definitely have to be ready to have some conversations with their kid.
hmm,
It's interesting because it's like the second really dark children's movie I've seen, and Wendell and Wild, which I reviewed on a recent episode, which is also on Netflix now, is also very, very dark, and deals with, spirits and people coming back to life and zombies and dead people. And so it's just like, it's very interesting to have two kind of stop motion animations with these really dark
hmm.
themes at the same time. So but yeah, I can definitely recommend it. So I don't know if it's a 4-star movie for me. I'm kind of grappling with that because I kept thinking like, is it a classic? Is it one of his best films? Is it something I want to watch over and over again? I'm trying to
I
still.
think I know what you mean. I know, and I didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but there is, I believe, a documentary on Netflix of the making of the movie, that I wanna watch, because for me, the effort that went into the film also like bumps it up for me. And I remember reading a quote that Guillermo del Toro, like when he went into this movie, he was like, we're not going to go with any audience notes, any producer notes. We're just going to make the movie we want to make, and no one can tell us like how we want to change it. And that to me,
Mhm.
having that integrity for like the original vision for the movie, like puts it up a little higher. And I'm not surprised that Guillermo del Toro has like the weight to be able to like
To
ask
do
for
that,
that,
yeah.
because he's so prolific. But yeah, I kind of want to give it a rewatch, and I want to watch a documentary and see the making of
I
it, because it
definitely think
definitely
I need
intrigues
a
me.
rewatch of it as well. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm going to say 3.5 out of 4 for now, but it could be
Yeah.
one of these that goes up over time. So
Hmm.
slow, slow grower, so to speak. So we should move on to your next film because I know we're excited to talk about this one.
Yes. So the 1977 Suspiria, directed by Dario Argento. It's an Italian giallo horror movie. It's very stylized and interesting. The plot is this girl, she's a dancer, Susie Bannon. She goes to Germany to study at the Tanz Academy dance school, and things just seem a little weird. Uh, when she arrives there, it's like pouring rain, and this girl runs out and whispers something to her, and it just things seem off. She keeps like getting sick and not feeling well and fainting, and the people just all seem very strange. And it's so a thing that I love about this movie, and the plot is very simple. It's witches. The school's run by witches. There's a head witch who Susie eventually is able to learn about and then kill and it destroys the academy. It's very simple. All the haunting, all the murders are related to these witches that are happening because a lot of people die in this movie. um and the witches are there, and they're leeching off of the girls who are at the dance school, leeching off of their energy. So very simple, but this movie is primarily, as far as the horror and the storytelling goes, it is through the like visual storytelling elements.
Oh yeah,
um
some
it's
beautiful, beautiful
the
film.
imagery is it's stunning, but it is like scary. There are points that there are certain like lighting effects. Like there's this point where like all the girls have to sleep in the cafeteria because maggots infested like the upper floors, and um they're all surrounded by like these curtains, and then it's like, okay, lights out, and the second the lights go out, it's just this stunning shot where everything is completely saturated in red light, and everyone in the scene is acting like everything's just fine, as if they're just like sitting in the dark, but they're completely bathed in this
Right.
ominous red. And there's so much visual storytelling that happens in this movie, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. I watch it like every year, I would say. um and to me, as like a photographer as well, like the way the composition of shots and how beautiful it is like really draws me in. The ability to tell a story through visual elements primarily, um
Yeah. I could see
to
you
set the
as a
tone.
photographer that like this is a photographer's dream. This movie is so beautiful and not and spooky. And you want to see how like a horror movie, so many modern horror films use a lot of special effects, right, to tell their
Mm-hmm.
stories. But this film, he does everything with mood and lighting and sound and a lot of lighting, a lot of set design. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
set design is just incredible in this film. The scenes
Yeah.
where she's Susie towards the end, where she's going down the hallway um, and running from something that she can't even really see. And there's just, and the way the camera tracks with her, like you said, the composition of the shots is just absolutely phenomenal. So this is, for a long time, been one of my favorite horror films as well. It was remade in recent years. I'm curious, did you watch the remake? And no, not
No,
at
I didn't.
all.
Who I It's on my list. I just didn't get a chance to see it when it came out. It's Luca
Guadagnino, yeah, a great
Guadagnino. Yeah.
director, but and a great cast. It's got Dakota Johnson and Tilda Swinton, and but the remake for me, it goes in like a feminist direction with it, rather, instead of like the original, it's a little bit more pro witch. I don't know if that's the right word you would use, but it's highly sexualized. The new one, to me, it just didn't have the same oomph because I was missing that the look of I was missing just the beauty, I think, of the photography of the original. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some people that think the new one is better, but I like the original still better myself. So
I'll have to watch it at some point.
yeah, yeah, no, it's a great film. Dario Argento did a lot of great films, and for people that are not familiar with the Italian, sorry, say it again, the word giallo.
Giallo. Hmm.
Hi, I got close. Horror genre. One thing to note is that the films are highly stylized and they often used international actors, even American actors in the films. And so a lot of it is dubbed. So for people that are familiar with like Fellini films, which is not horror, but just know like if you it's not it may seem cheesy to you at first when you first start watching it, all the dubbing, but that's just the way they made those genre of films. So you kind of just have to suspend disbelief around that part if you're not familiar with this genre. So I think we only have like 2 minutes to discuss Barbarian, but I'm gonna, yeah. 3 minutes, but we have to wrap up too, Brad. Brad's
Yes.
giving. Brad is our editor, everyone, in case you didn't think I'm talking to myself, because you can't see him on camera. He's giving me the sign. So Barbarian, 2022, a brand new horror film, which I think we picked because we thought it would go with Suspiria, right, Leah? It's about a woman who is at a rental house she got in Detroit. She reserved this rental house, and then she discovers that another man has double booked himself there. And you think it's going to be about that. So you think it's going to be like, oh, like the movie Men that came out last year, like about creepy men. And it definitely seems like it's going in that direction. But oh boy, does it not. It's actually that the house itself has a lot going on. And so this is a film that actually kind of takes part in almost like three parts because there's three different men who kind of come into the house at different times, and the house does different things to the people. And I don't want to actually give too much about this a one away because it's pretty new and you could still rent it. And it's actually, I went in knowing almost nothing about this film, and I think that's the way to watch this one. I knew nothing about it, so I had no idea where it was going. And everywhere I thought it was going, it did not go at all. And I really like that. In terms of originality of screenplay, this is one of the most original I've seen in a while because I mean, for horror, especially where you think, oh yeah, this is gonna happen. I had no idea where it's going. The one thing it does do, like a lot of horror films, is the character just does a lot of stupid things. Like I was immediately like, just leave the house. As soon as she saw it was double booked, I was like, just drive away. It's in the modern, you can get a hotel somewhere else, but she doesn't do that. She stays in the house. That was the only thing that really annoyed me. So what did you think of it, Leah?
I loved this movie. I rewatched it yesterday because I saw it when it came out. What I learned about this movie is Zach Cregger, who wrote and directed the movie. He originally wrote the entire movie wouldn't have become a thing. He wrote it to like do an experiment of like how women behave in situations like that versus men, where women can like often have to be like more polite and reserved to like have that fawn response to protect themselves.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that was really interesting. But then he got like bored with it, and and then it became the horror movie, and the juxtaposition of the way she responds to situations where she feels like really unsafe, and then when Justin's Long character comes in later and the way like he behaves in the house when he's noticing all these scary things going on is just
Mhm.
really, really good in my opinion.
Yeah,
Also, there's like lighting and creative techniques in the movie that I also thought were amazing. So I definitely recommend this one,
I
especially like
do.
watching it for the second time. So good, so
Yeah,
good.
and very original. That's what I really
Mhm.
appreciated about it. So I know we have to wrap up
Agreed.
really quickly. Thank you, Leah. I hope you come back on. I know you're super busy with your new job now, but please come back on. I love talking about movies with you.
Thank you. I would love to.
Yeah, so go check out our website, reelfilmsnobs.com. More importantly, subscribe on YouTube. Click that little bell button and you'll get notifications when we have a new episode up. We're on CC Media in Salem, Scan TV in Silverton, Corvallis Access Media, KMUZ Radio, KMWV Radio, and we're on our podcast on Anchor. So check that out. Thank you to our wonderful crew, which is mainly Brad these days. Thank you, Brad, and our fantastic sponsors. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and great movies.